This happened to my mother when she was around 19. She had a very vivid nightmare one night of a man standing in front of her. He was in his mid to late 20s, she said. Light skin with black hair and yellow reptile-like eyes. He laughed this maniacal, evil, insane laugh that grew louder and louder. She woke up and thought it to be nothing more than a bad dream. The next morning on her way to work, she caught the bus. She made her way toward the front to get off as they arrived at her stop. A young man got on, the same man from her nightmare, except his eyes were black instead of yellow. My mother said he locked eyes with her the moment he got onto the bus and smirked widely, as if he knew. She stared at him with her eyes wide, unwilling to turn her back to him as she shakily stumbled off the bus. Just before the door shut behind her as she stepped onto the sidewalk, she said he begun to laugh. The same crazy, terrifying laugh from her dream. Hello everyone. I want to preface this post by saying that while I've had some pretty mind-boggling experiences that seem paranormal, I've had a hard time attributing them to spirits or demons. I'm a pretty skeptical person, and I'm also an atheist. However, I've always been fascinated and open-minded about this subject in particular. Let's get on with it. My family moved into our house back when I was in second grade. I'm 21 now. Back in the 80s, the kitchen of this house burned down and had to be rebuilt, but the rest of the house had remained intact. I don't remember any experiences when we first moved in, but after a year or so passed, my parents started renovating the basement. They added a master bedroom, media room, and renovated the small bathroom down there as well. There's speculation that renovating a structure can stir up paranormal activity. When the renovation started was when things really started to pick up. Keep in mind, this renovation project went on for about 4 or 5 years. Crappy contractors can really extend an otherwise short project. Number 1. My sister had a doorbell for her bedroom door. It was a small flower about the size of a large saucer that had a wire that you would attach to the door frame. You'd push the button and it would emit a pretty loud beep-boo sound 3 times. At completely random times during the night, the dang thing would go off. I attribute it to being faulty, but it would only happen in the later hours. Number 2. The oven we have in the kitchen is very much from the 80s. It has old dials, and one of the dials is the timer. Now this thing takes quite a lot of torque to turn. When it's off, it's fixed into place and requires a good amount of strength to break it from its fixed position. When you do break it from its fixed position, it goes into the secondary position, which is the buzzer. So all you have to do is get it into that position to make it go off. You don't need to set the timer. The timer would frequently go off on its own at odd hours, sometimes in the middle of the day and other times a few hours before dinner. These were the 2 experiences that happened consistently and regularly. I had a couple experiences that only happened once. One time I was lying in bed. It was 11 p.m., and everyone had gone to bed. I was playing on my Game Boy and heard 3 stern knocks on my bedroom door that sounded as though the knocks were about 2/3 up my door. I didn't really think anything of it and brushed it off. However, there was one time a year or so later where I literally flipped out. I was laying in my bed playing my Game Boy and watching a movie. By my door I had a cabinet. Next to that was my dresser, which had my TV on it. Where I laid my head was in the corner opposite of the corner of my door, so I had a peripheral view of my door and the cabinet. On that cabinet was a small bottle of fancy mouthwash my mom got me from a recent trip to Vegas. It was at least 3 inches from the edge of the cabinet. As I was playing my Game Boy, I saw the bottle get picked up about 4 inches and thrown at my closet doors, which were about 3 feet from the cabinet. I got up and ran downstairs to my parents, scared to death. I wasn't the only one who had experiences. My mom did as well. She would be hit by something in the middle of the night, and when it started to happen regularly, she confronted whatever she thought it was that was doing it. She was alone in the bathroom getting ready for work. and said, "I understand that you live here too, but you need to stop hitting me." As soon as she said that, the shower head, the one with the really long handle that you had to lift out of the holster, was lifted out and dropped, which in turn startled my mom. I have a friend who reported hearing footsteps and complains about the general feel of my house. He says it's very uncomfortable. Like I said before, I have a hard time attributing these experiences to spirits, but there's one thing that really makes my hair stand on end. In the laundry room of my house, which is located in the back of the garage and on the same level of the basement, there was writing on the wall that said, "You and Dad did the best you could," and it had a name scribbled below it. Now I have no idea who did this. The family that lived in the house before us had kids who would write things on cabinet doors. In fact, our front door has "exit" crudely written in crayon. The thing that separates all that crap in the writing in the laundry room is that the laundry room writing is in pencil. It's neat and legible, besides the signature. All the other writing is in crayon or marker, and is usually just random shapes that little kids would come up with. I haven't had any experiences since around middle school, but my friend swears he's experienced things, but I wasn't there, so I can't confirm or deny. Number 1. When I was in kindergarten, we were all given crayons and a huge sheet of paper. Maybe not that huge, but I was little, and everything seemed huge. And I was told to draw my family. So I did. I drew my dad, my mom, my brother, and my sister next to my mom, the same height as my mom. The only problem was, I never had a sister. Anyway, the teacher wrote on the board mother, father, brother, and sister, and told us to copy it. We couldn't spell yet. So, under my drawing of my dad, I put father, and under my mom, I put mother, and under my brother, who was 1 year older than me, I put brother, and under the girl I drew next to my mother, I put sister. I never had a sister. Anyway, I took the huge piece of paper home and showed it to my mother. She looked carefully and gave me a strange look and handed me the sheet. The sheet was kept in a white suitcase for many, many years. Finally, it was lost. Anyway, I was 5 at the time. Fast forward to when I was 43 years old, my grandmother tells me out of the blue, "Your mother has a daughter, you know." Found out, my mother got pregnant and had a daughter at 16. The daughter was given up for adoption. When I was 5, my mother was 37, so her daughter, my sister, would have been about 21 years old, and presumably, by that time, about the same height as my mother. I never had the courage to ask my mother about it, so I have no idea why my grandmother told me that when I was 42 years old. Number 2. I had a friend who worked for Boeing Aircraft in Everett, Washington. He lived with another Boeing engineer, who had a nice country home in Redmond, Washington, just next to Bellevue and perhaps 2 miles from Microsoft. The guy's name was Mr. D. Anyway, my friend knew I was seeking to rent a room in the Bellevue area, because I was trying to get a job up there in that area. My home was 55 miles south, but I wanted to move. So I rented a room from Mr. D. Mr. D was a widower, with 2 sons, 5 and 6. Mr. D's wife had been murdered 6 months before in Bellevue. Not by him. His wife was a cocaine addict, and got cocaine from having sex with dealers, and was also selling some on the side. Finally, she began to bring men home during the day when Mr. D was not home. So finally, Mr. D started divorce proceedings and told his wife to move out. She did. About 4 months later, the police showed up at his door, saying they had some bad news. They found his wife inside a car next to a known drug apartment complex, the kind of place that attracts druggies. Someone had stabbed her repeatedly. Mr. D still went to work, but you can tell that he was devastated and very depressed. Anyway, I stay in the lower study, just under the boys' room. The 2 boys did not like to stay in their room, so they slept in their father's room. I asked them, "Why don't you sleep in your own room?" They said, "Because Mommy scares us at night." Anyway, I remember waking up one morning to the sound of something throwing things, probably toys, upstairs, in the boys' room. The boys were at school, and Mr. D and my friend Mr. L were at work. I feel like I had no energy, that all my energy had been zapped away by something. I could barely get off the couch that I slept on. For about 20 or 30 minutes almost every morning, starting out about 9 or 10 a.m., someone or something was throwing toys around in the boys' room, directly above the study where I slept. Every day this happened. I felt like all my energy was gone. Usually you sleep for 8 hours, and you wake up feeling refreshed. Well, I would wake up more tired than I was when I went to bed. I assumed it was some cats playing, tossing toys around, almost every day. Finally, I went upstairs to let the cats roam free in the house, and I could hear toys banging on the walls, floor, and even the door as I was climbing the stairs. I quickly opened the door to the boys' room, and everything went silent. I turned on the light and looked around. Nothing. No cats. I shut off the light and went back downstairs. Anyway, another morning came, and the banging was especially loud. Just imagine some frisky cats tossing toys around, and all the toys banging on the walls and the floor. This day, it went on for an hour. And yes, I felt like I had no energy at all. I was completely drained. Finally, around 6:30 p.m., Mr. D and Mr. L, my friend, came home with the boys. Mr. D is holding a small suitcase, his homework from work. I meet him in the hallway and say to Mr. D, "Why do you keep those cats locked up all day?" Mr. D said, "I don't have any cats." I said, "Well, somebody or something is throwing around toys in the boys' room in the morning, sometimes up to an hour." Mr. L looks at Mr. D and starts a nervous laugh, and Mr. D exhales and drops his homework, and rushes upstairs to the boys' room. I didn't follow him, and I regret not following him. I said to Mr. L, What? Why are you laughing?" Mr. L just kept up his nervous laughter and shaking his head no. Anyway, after that day, the banging stopped for about a week. I got good rest, and I felt refreshed in the mornings. Then it all started again. The tossing of the toys, and me having no energy when I woke up. At about this point, I was scared, because he told me he had no cats. I was the only one in the house, and something was throwing toys around. I decided to move back in with my mother at that point, 55 miles away. Years later, I was watching Ghost Hunters, and they discussed how spirits zap energy from batteries, or even other humans in order to manifest or to throw things. I thought, aha! That's why I didn't have any energy waking up to the bangings. She was stealing my energy in order to throw toys around. Why throw toys around? I have no idea. Maybe to convince her 2 boys she was still around. Maybe she did that at night before I moved in, and that's why they told me, "Mommy scares us at night," and they moved in with their dad. Anyway, a psychic woman once told me, to ghosts, most people look like shadows, but to them I look like a lighthouse. I guess I attract them. I wish I could see them all the time and be a trance medium. At least that way I could make some money from this. Just today I was going outside, and 2 dogs, German shepherds, ran out the door before I could catch them. They belong to another boarder. I live in a boarding house. As I try to grab the smaller one of the 2, I get a flash that he gets run over. He slips through. I was grabbing for his collar, but he doesn't have it on. Anyway, I scream his name as loud as I can. He keeps running, right into the front wheels of a truck. The truck runs him over in front of my eyes, breaking his back. So we take him to the vet, and she says he'll never walk again. And his owner's crying, but makes the decision to euthanize him. So I pay for the euthanizing, as well as the cremation. It's the least I could do. I still feel horrible, and will for a long time. But that's life, and some things in life cannot be avoided.